Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Not sure where each of you is joining this live event from. Thank you to ServiceNow for the opportunity to uh, share some of the trends in the industry and talk a little bit about uh, service parts and also talk a little bit about Ushur in the process. Um, Today, we're going to learn a little bit about the explosive growth of mobility in general, and with that, how messaging has become the most ubiquitous form of engagement, and it's evident in how we all engage in a social context. Platforms like Slack, Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp, these platforms have really taken engagement levels to um, the next level, and messaging has become the de facto mode of engagement for short real-time engagements. Um, Not to forget about plain old SMS. Between SMS and the and all of the messaging apps that we are talking about, it's expected that there will be 500 billion messages in a day in the next 2 years, right? So it's going to overtake every other form of communication that we have seen. And that's basically why there's a massive rush to solve specific problems right in the context of messaging. And hence all of the hoopla about messaging bots or chat bots, as you may have heard. To look at this, I think we need to understand a little bit about the changing user behavior. And fundamentally, what we have seen is long forms of engagement, like email, leads to fewer and fewer conversations because these long forms don't lend themselves to um, quick interactions with short snippets of engagement. And that's the reason why users prefer messaging to other long forms of engagement like phone calls or emails by a factor of 5 to 1, right? An average millennial would be texting about 67 messages in a day. And these are just trends that we are already familiar with. And when you look at the open rates for text messages and compare that against email, a text message has an open rate of 98%. That's almost giddy, right? Compared to an email, which has an open rate of about less than 20% and going down every year, right? It's not that email gets delivered slower than a text message. It speaks to the changing user behavior, how our mindset about specific applications, how we are engaging is changing or has already changed, right? It's a good segue to now understand some key terms that are used in the industry. So in the context of messaging, since messaging has become such a popular interface for users, businesses are now trying to figure out how they can actually um, get the user's attention or solve specific enterprise solutions using messaging as a channel. So the first term we're going to understand or learn about is what we call chat interfaces. So chat interfaces are basically interfaces on existing business applications that enable human agents or customer service reps to engage with customers using a chat interface. So that's primarily enabling messaging, through dashboards on those B2B systems. This specific trend has been in vogue for a few years now, where there are lots of different types of chat applications that have come and gone. But they have not been as popular, primarily because you have to put a human agent in front of the problem. So it doesn't scale really very well. Now let's talk about the next trend, which is incredibly popular or hot, and that's the chat bot. So what the chat bot term refers to is the idea of enabling automated engagements through scripts, through rule-based decision trees or dialogue trees. And these automated engagements lend themselves to scale. You can scale engagements with customers considerably, because there's no human dependency. There's no dependency on you staffing up or putting a human body in front of those engagements. These have become incredibly popular in the past 2 or 3 years. Every major platform is talking about and introducing um, ways for application developers to create chatbots on their channel. Facebook launched their bot platform last year. Microsoft has its own bot platform, but by and large, the idea here is you can actually take a script or a rule-based decision tree that a product owner or a business owner can actually come up with and enable customer engagements to happen through automation, right? So the next term is artificial intelligence. So this is an evolution of what chatbots can become. And the promise here is some deep technology like natural language processing, natural language understanding, machine learning, and deep learning. And the promise of AI is that it actually leads to autonomous systems, right? Systems where these algorithms will help conversions through predictive analytics, through understanding how previous conversations have happened and lead the user down a specific path, right? Um, but the primary prerequisite for AI to work is by enabling massive amounts of data sets. So the success of AI will depend on the data sets that those algorithms are operating on, and it requires training. So that's why AI, we believe, is something that can be effective for businesses or for use cases where you have previous data that is available. Now let's talk a little bit about what does a service bot actually mean, right? So we learned a little bit about chat bots in general. Now, this is a new term that is coming out in the industry, and the idea here is that of all of the things that you can enable automation to set you up with, you can use messaging-based automation to solve repeated service tasks, right? So when we talk about service tasks, let's take the simple example of password reset, right? Years ago, we had to run to our IT person to ask them to reset a password. But very soon, it became apparent that it was such a frequently occurring use case that um, password reset became a well-known automated workflow. So you can actually click on a reset password link, and then you'll get an email, and you can actually reset your password through automation, right? Now extend that over and beyond password reset to other higher complexity engagements or interactions, like filing an incident or getting confirmation from a user about a resolution or getting an approval. Now, these are all service tasks that can actually be automated using messaging. And doing so, using these automated scripts or chat bots is what we call as service bots. Why is this a big deal? Why is this relevant, right? Service desk automation is a huge opportunity. We're just scratching the surface in terms of automation. Platforms like ServiceNow have really transformed the ability of record keeping, and they've become massive systems of records. But what is fascinating is, to manage these systems of records, businesses are spending a certain amount of money, and they're spending 5 times that amount in actually owning, administering, and performing service delivery over and above on those platforms. So service delivery is currently, a large portion of service delivery is manual, right? Much of the service desk functions, the service incident management, the whole HR management, is all manually done today. And there's a huge opportunity to automate that service delivery itself, right? It's estimated to be over $60 billion in terms of the market opportunity. And you can take a huge slice of that by actually enabling automation. So here is where I just want to talk a little bit about what we do at Ushur. And I want to introduce some key concepts. What you can expect in the rest of the presentation today is learn a little bit about conversational interfaces and see a simple demo of how a conversational interface looks like. And we'll also go through a service bot, or how does a service bot looks, and what do you need to do to get a service bot up and running on a platform like ServiceNow. So to understand that, I need to introduce you to a little bit about the interface itself. So what you see here is a simple interface which allows a user to engage with the automated system. And this is what we call as a conversational interface. A conversational interface is basically giving you the ability to use messaging as a channel to engage with an automated system. And in this example, what you're seeing here is the customer is having a notification on the mobile device asking him to enter a prescription information, right? As soon as the prescription information was put in, a tracking information, the shipping date was made available with a subsequent call to action. Hey, this is the last refill. Do you want us to contact your doctor to refill your prescription? You can say yes or no, or you can even respond back with a number. And then the system collects all this information and then works with the back office order management system. So Ushur is about enabling customers to interact in a way that they interact with friends and family. And the fundamental paradigm shift here with messaging-based systems is what we call asynchronous form of engagement, which is giving you the ability to not be stuck in a conversation. You can actually pause and continue that conversation anytime, just like you would do in your WhatsApp messaging or your SMS or your iMessage or your Facebook Messenger. You're not tethered to the conversation, right? Unlike a phone call. So it's a fundamentally different paradigm shift, and building systems like this requires a very different architecture. You need to be able to handle sessions that can span substantial amounts of time, because I can actually choose to not respond back to that prescription refill call to action for about 2 weeks, and I can come back to it and still continue this conversation, right? I can continue the engagement. So that requires a very different way to build a system. So these are new terms, new things. There's a lot of jargon out there. So let's try and see if we can declutter all of the jargon over the next few minutes, right? So what we have done is we have created a SaaS platform that enables automation of these mobile micro engagements. And Ushur is about driving these across multiple channels. And particularly, our platform is designed for integrations with systems of records. And we have a deep integration with ServiceNow. We have several apps in our ServiceNow store, and you can take a look at it. We offer a secure encrypted interface with text, voice, and media that can drive global two-way messaging in 192 countries. And this is an interface that works in 102 different languages. So with that as a precursor, I just want to introduce you to the SDK itself, right? So the SDK itself is a software development kit that is available as an update set. It's a publicly available update set. And at the end of this presentation, I want to actually show you how you can actually get access to that SDK. But the idea behind the SDK is to enable ServiceNow developers to stay on the ServiceNow platform and to create incredibly powerful applications, right? Incredibly powerful service bots and to drive automation that can lead to considerable amounts of uh, KPIs that can either be top line KPIs or bottom line KPIs. Why would you need this, right? Why would I need a ServiceNow SDK? For the exact same reason I was just saying, right? You can create powerful business applications rapidly, right? Where you would have spent weeks and weeks building out these applications with the SDK, it actually simplifies the entire process of creating an engagement or a service bot application on top of ServiceNow. You can build something really quick in as little as 30 minutes, right? And fundamentally, the important thing is for ServiceNow developers, you want something that works in the context of ServiceNow. It needs to be deeply integrated into your ServiceNow platform so that you don't ever have to leave the platform to create these bots. Number one. Number two, from a compliance perspective, you want to keep all of the engagements back in the system of record. So it allows, the SDK basically allows an extended use of the ServiceNow platform by bringing in a conversational interface in 102 different languages. So even though your system of record may be set up, your ServiceNow may be set up to deal with in English language, if you have users in a specific geography, you can create hyper-local conversational experiences and bring all that engagements back into your system of record. Right? And it's tailored for lifecycle interactions. And what do we mean by lifecycle interactions, right? A lifecycle interaction is something that spans a certain a time period, something that is that's over a substantial amount of time, and these are applicable in the HR case, in the incident management case, in the service desk space, and even for simple things like change, right? Anything that involves a life cycle interaction, you can actually bring in a service bot and have a meaningful conversation with the end users and drive specific KPIs and change the experience completely. So I want to start with a simple demo. And in this demo, what we are going to learn is, what we're going to see is basically how I can actually create an incident using a simple service bot that has been set up. Okay, and to do that, I need to be able to show you my screen. So bear with me while I bring my phone on the screen. It should come up in a second here. Okay. Just bringing up an application that allows me to screen share here. Okay, so it looks like I'm having some issues here screencasting my phone, but perhaps I can show you what I was intending to do here. Okay. So since I'm not able to screencast my phone, I'm actually going to go to my iMessage here and show you exactly what I was doing here. It should come up here. There. So this is basically my iMessage screen. Instead of seeing this on my phone, you're seeing it from my iMessage window here. So the first thing I did was hashtag retail, and that triggered an engagement with a service bot that was set up on my ServiceNow. So to quickly take a step back here, here is our setup. So I have my ServiceNow instance, and I have an SDK that is installed on this ServiceNow instance. And there are a couple of applications that are already running on my ServiceNow instance. And I'm going to show you some of the insights of how all of these things look. Just a second. And let's go right back into this here. So when I invoked this hashtag retail, it started a conversation with the service bot. So that was the trigger point for me to engage the bot. And I actually texted this hashtag retail to a number that I am already familiar with. And this is something that you can set your users with. And now let's go ahead and request help with this Raymark application, right? So I asked for one, which was Raymark application, and then it immediately came back and said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to add a user, or do you want to report a problem?" Let's go ahead and report a problem. Okay, what is the problem you're having with Raymark, right? So we just said demo to ServiceNow community, right? So it collected a bunch of information from me. And now what this bot is doing is it's actually working with ServiceNow and creating an incident within ServiceNow. Now let's go quickly take a look at what this bot looks like here, right? So this was the scripted workflow that we engaged with, right? Welcome to Service Desk. Which of these systems do you need help with, right? And based on the decision that I was making, it took me down the path and engaged with me based on the conversation flow that was set up. Okay, so this is basically what a service bot is. It's basically a pre-scripted set of conversations that you can actually create that enables engagements to automate a lot of the things that are currently manually done. And in our case, we set it up to collect some pieces of information so we could actually create an incident in ServiceNow. And let's go back to that iMessage. See, within 30 seconds, the bot created an incident with ServiceNow and came back and told us what that incident number was. Incident 10574 has been created successfully for your issue demo to ServiceNow community. Now let's go and see whether that actually happened here. So if I go to my ServiceNow instance and I open the incident table, so 10574 was just now created, right? So 10574 with demo to ServiceNow community. So this was basically what I exchanged in my conversational interface with the service bot, and it actually picked up anything that I was conversing and dumped it into my ServiceNow incident, right? Just a simple example like this enables a lot of different use cases. So think about every scenario where you have a retail store, or you have 200 service desk agents answering phones, collecting information from your constituents, from your users, and just filing incidents. Many of those are candidates for automation through a simple interface like this. Okay. So that's one example of a service bot. Now let's go back into the workflow itself and understand a couple of key terms that we talked about here. So this entire flow, you can create hundreds of flows like this, right? This was one flow, Raymark register. This was something that we had set up previously during another demo, so I'm just reusing that. Uh, so this is basically a service bot, a conversation flow. And each of these blocks that we see are what we call as modules or micro engagements. Why is it called a micro engagement, right? It's basically a short snippet of interaction or engagement that's back and forth with a user, right? Um, and building a system that allows these micro engagements is what we do at Ushur. Okay, different chatbots have different architectures, but our entire philosophy is that all these conversations are uh, done through micro engagements, and inserting these micro engagements in the context of systems of records allows the creation of very powerful, extensible applications, right? And every module here that you see is basically an addressable piece of entity, right? Through either APIs or through other means that we have done. And the SDK has access to all of these. So at the moment I clicked on detail view, you saw all these engagement tags showing up here, right? So I can basically program my service bot to work with specific engagement tags, right? And that's what we have done in the context of ServiceNow. Let's quickly jump right back into the presentation so I can introduce a couple more key terms here. So here is how the whole thing worked, right? When we actually interacted with a service bot, what you were seeing was this Ushur micro engagement platform handling all of those interactions. So from a user perspective, we enable a multi-channel engagement through our gateway capabilities that we have built. And the micro engagement engine is what is actually serving those engagements as and when the users are exchanging information. The flow builder is what you saw in the form of a workflow, right? So you saw that service flow or conversation flow, all that was done using the flow builder, right? So the key is here for a ServiceNow developer to not worry about building a conduit into the Ushur platform, and that's where the ServiceNow instance SDK comes into play. So when you take that the Ushur SDK and insert it into your ServiceNow instance, it gives you the ability to connect with the Ushur platform seamlessly. You don't have to worry about having another entry point into the Ushur platform. The SDK takes care of all that, and it allows a ServiceNow developer to keep the focus on things that they are good at, that they already are familiar with, which is the ServiceNow tables, the ServiceNow events, the ServiceNow queues. All of the constructs required for you to create applications are done right within your ServiceNow instance using the SDK, right? So let's see what that looks like here. See, so by installing this SDK, you get access to a studio-like setup, and you can create interesting applications right here. And in this case, I have created a simple application. And in this application, we saw how you could actually file an incident, right? Now, we'll take that to the next level, right? So we'll insert something called as a resolution confirmation, right? A resolution confirmation is basically notifying the user that their issue has actually been resolved. You can do that in 3 simple steps, right? We are already familiar with these service bots or these campaigns, right? We need to program that into our SDK, right? And we need to define certain ServiceNow triggers upon which we initiate some sort of an engagement with the user, right? And then we need to look at these these engagement tags, and if the user does respond to some of these calls to action, we need to bring that back into ServiceNow and make certain things happen. So I'll try and slow it down a little bit. Many of these are a little bit of new terms for you, but let me try and slow it down as I show you this. Um, so for resolution confirmation to work, the first thing I need to do is to define my workflow itself. And as I was mentioning, with the SDK, you don't need to leave the ServiceNow platform. If you see, this is my ServiceNow instance, 1177.servicenow.com. And I have access to my ServiceNow view here, and I can switch to an Ushur view. And when I click on this Ushur view, what I'm doing is I'm having access to the workflow that I have here that we were seeing previously, right from within my ServiceNow instance. Now, I have a simple workflow here, and the intent behind this workflow is to get a confirmation from the user that their issue is indeed resolved. So that's what this workflow bot has been set up for. So let's ignore the first two modules here for a second. The first call to action that we see with the user is, has your issue been resolved? Can you confirm? It's a yes or no question, right? Now let's click on this detail view here. So we actually can see these engagement tags. And these are important entities that you need to configure in your ServiceNow tables. And I'll show you how to do that. So by installing this SDK, we have access to both ServiceNow view and the Ushur view right from within that SDK itself. Okay, so that's the first step. Now I need to define a workflow. So I have a simple application here. I called it 17M18T1. So let's see what this application actually does, right? So it has actually set up a workflow. It works with this workflow here called Ushur Resolution Confirmation, which is the name that you see here, right? So that's the name of the service bot that we are working with. Then I have created a ServiceNow trigger, right? And the ServiceNow trigger is basically a simple call to action, right? So what it is doing here is, it basically runs on this incident table, right? And there's a target queue that was automatically created when I picked that Ushur Resolution Confirmation as my workflow. And this ServiceNow trigger has been set up to run whenever that incident table updates, okay? And it's going to pick up the incident number, and it's going to pick up the caller. The caller is basically identifying who the submitter of the incident is, because we need access to the phone number to notify that that caller. And we built a simple message here saying incident number. So that's the name of that's the incident number has been resolved. So we want to actually notify the user that their incident has been resolved whenever the incident changes from an open state to a resolved state. Now let's see how that was done here, right? Right. So in order to do that, I need to define a couple of key things. One is we are talking about service tags or the engagement tags. So if I go back to my view here, I see two tags here. An Ushur engagement tag, which is 382867, and an Ushur engagement tag, which is 881809. So I actually defined those two in my UE actions, right? So if the issue is confirmed, if the user confirms that the issue is indeed resolved, then what we need to do is to change the state of that incident, right? So let's look at that, right? So the engagement tag 382867 confirms that the issue is actually resolved. And we need to transition the state of that incident from an open state to a resolved state, which is what you see here in the script. Okay, so it's operating on the same incident table, and it's working on the state of that incident, and it's changing the state to a value 7, which in ServiceNow terms is actually closing that incident. And this script executes whenever the user confirms or responds back. Let's go back to that Ushur view here. So when you present this call to action to the user, has your issue been resolved? And the user responds saying, yes, my issue is indeed resolved. You actually go and fetch that information and bring it right back into the ServiceNow table and execute this script. Right now, another similar thing has been done when the issue is not resolved. Right. So when the issue is not resolved, what do you want the action to be? You want the action to be to reopen that incident, which is exactly what this piece of syntax here is doing. Right. Let's look at the script here. Right. So when the issue is not resolved, which is what you would see here, the user would have selected this option here, and then we bring that right back into ServiceNow. Right. When the user responds back with issue is not resolved, we change the state, the incident state, to a value 2. Okay. So simple steps of defining which workflow that you work with. You establish a ServiceNow trigger as and when the incident changes from an open state to a resolved state. You notify the user that their issue is indeed resolved, and it kicks off this entire Ushur campaign here, which is basically getting them to confirm that their issue has been resolved, right? And based on their actions, we have set up a couple of UE actions here. One is if the user confirms that the issue is resolved, then we actually go about marking that issue as closed, marking that incident closed. If the user disputes the resolution confirmation, then you can actually transition the incident state to an open state again. Right. So this is how this application has been set up. Now let's quickly run through this. Right. Let's quickly run through this and see what happens here. So let's go to the ServiceNow. This was the incident that we were working with. Let's go ahead and resolve this. Right. So within about 30 seconds, what you would see is some sort of a message coming back to the user here, right? And in our case, the message that we should be seeing, in the interest of time, would be something like this, right? Incident number has been resolved, right? And when that incident number has been resolved, comes back, it follows. Okay, there you go. See this? 10574 has been resolved. 10574 incident was the one that we were actually working with here. Right? 10574 was the incident that we were working with. So the app on the ServiceNow notified me saying that the issue has been resolved. Now I need to confirm whether the issue is resolved or not. Now let's go ahead and confirm that the issue is indeed resolved, right? It brought back a simple thing, and it also is asking me how good the service was. I'm going to rate that as a 9. Right? How likely are you to recommend this? Let's go ahead and give it a rating of 10. right? So now let's go back here into the responses tab here and see how this looks here. You see this? 10574, that was the incident that we were working with. All of the engagements are captured right in the system. But more importantly, we need to bring this right back into ServiceNow, right? Uh, every piece of information, whether I agreed to the resolution or not, what was my CSS, NPS scores, any other comments that I gave, all that is collected by this service bot. Now it's actually working. The app that we inserted in the SDK is working to make sure that the incident is actually transitioning from an open state to a closed state, or from a resolved state to a closed state. So if we go here, it will kick in a few seconds, and then it will make sure that that incident transitions from a resolved state to a closed state. Let's jump right back into this presentation since we are almost running out of time. So just to recap, so what you saw here was a way to create powerful applications that actually engage with users using a combination of these micro engagement engine and flow builder, and working alongside ServiceNow to create interesting applications to bring back those engagements right into ServiceNow to create even more powerful extensions of the ServiceNow platform. Okay. So we saw that resolution confirmation in action. Now let's see what are the other applications of these service bots in general, right? So we have seen service bots deployed for a variety of different types of service desk functions, and it's also extensible to, like I was saying, not just cost-saving measures, but also to improve your top-line measures. You can use marketing promotions, you can do renewals, you can do refills. These are all things that impact, these are all KPIs that would impact your top line. They help improve your revenue optimization. Or you can attach these flows to cost optimization problems, like incident triage. Incident triage is a pretty big use case in the ServiceNow world, right? So you can deploy an automated system to manage the entire incident, right? It's not just allowing users to file incidents. You can even insert incident deflection. You can ask the user, did you try option 1 versus option 2 versus option 3? And if all else fails, then you ask the user to give some more information, and you collect that information and create an incident. So that actually is a way for users to engage with an automated system to instantly engage and create an incident in ServiceNow. WISMO is an acronym for Where is my order? We see this quite a bit in businesses that are in the logistics space. For example, if you are shipping anything to anybody, then a large volume of service requests come in the form of, I want to know where my order is. Where is my order? That's what WISMO stands for. So you can actually build a flow that enables the end customer to, number one, enter certain tracking information or order information, and get a status of their order itself in the form of the shipping information, the tracking information, delivery status. All of those things can be integrated into your service bot that handles WISMO. Resolution confirmation. I think we are just scratching the surface. What resolution confirmation actually does is it reduces repeat calls into the service desk, right? People who have filed incidents constantly coming back. Is my issue resolved? Is my issue resolved? It's a pretty big driver of call volume into service desks. by inserting an automated resolution confirmation along the ServiceNow incident management infrastructure, you can actually get true SLA closures of your incidents, right? And that's actually the true measure of whether incidents were resolved timely or not. Typically, we soft close issues after 48 hours because the user did not come back and dispute the resolution. But you can actually take a proactive approach and get actual confirmation from users, particularly for uh, critical issues, critical customer service impacting issues, and it actually leads to a better engagement with the customer also. And also, it provides you an entry point to measure the service desk performance itself. How good was my service, right? Can you just tell us if there's anything that we need to do to improve our service? You can insert a net promoter score question. Is this how likely are you to recommend our product or service, right? So those are great examples. If you're in the insurance realm, or you are in the business of supporting claims, claims is a huge, it has a life cycle, right? Typically, a claimant would come in and file a request, and then there's some back and forth, there's some verification, there's some collection of information. All of these are things that are currently manually being done, and there's an opportunity to workflow automate many of these scenarios, right? So in the context of ServiceNow, you could do things like approval if you're talking about change, right? You could do delivery confirmation, you can do address change, refill. So these are some of the service parts that we see our customers using. So we just thought we should share this with you, so you can actually understand how you can actually use the SDK to create powerful applications. But my belief is that I think by creating an access to the SDK, you can become even more creative, and you may be able to create applications that we have not even conceived of. And that's what we are encouraging you to do, right? Bring your creativity and show what you can do by using this SDK and extending the ServiceNow platform usage, right? So how do I get access to the SDK? So the SDK is basically available as an update set, right? It's available for a free download. We don't charge you anything. It runs right on your ServiceNow instance, as long as you're on Geneva and above. And to get access to the SDK, you can actually text this hashtag get Ushur. It's case insensitive, so it does not matter whether you use uppercase or lowercase. Don't forget the hashtag there before get Ushur. So you have to text hashtag get Ushur, and the number that you have to text to is 87487. This is what we call as a short code. 87487 stands for Ushur on your keypad. If you are outside the US, this will not work. You can email us info@ushur.com. But if you're in the US, you can actually get access to the SDK by just texting this. If you're outside the US, just drop us a note at info@ushur.com. We'll be happy to support you and give you access to this update set. We just collect a couple of basic information from you about your email address and for your name, so we can actually engage with you and understand and support you better. And we are excited about the types of applications that you can create using our SDK. And we believe we are at the early stage of this innovation, where we are bringing in automation to drive a lot of these engagements. And we are part of the journey to transform these systems of records to become great systems of engagement. Because at the end, it's all about building incredibly powerful systems of engagement. While record keeping is critical and important, I think it's the systems of engagement that have the power to radically transform productivity, radically transform the effectiveness, and reducing all of the friction that exists today, right? Nobody wants to pick up the phone and call Comcast or AT&T because we dread about being put on hold, right? And that was the vision that's enabled me and my co-founder Henry to start this company. And we hope that you can build incredibly powerful applications on top of ServiceNow using our SDK. Okay, so that was the quick presentation that I wanted to share with you. I think some of the demo was a little bit fast paced, and if you could not keep up with many of the terms or some of the things, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, you can email us at info@ushur.com. Go to our website, and I'm happy to have our team support you as you go on this journey of building incredible applications. There's also a CreatorCon challenge coming up at Knowledge, in Florida. And if you want to use our SDK to build applications, you can go ahead and do that. Team Ushur will be at Knowledge, so if you do want to meet with us, again, you can drop us a note, and we'll be happy to catch up with you. Right. So let me just quickly go to the community and see if there are a few questions that I can help answer. If not, we'll basically be signing off. And if there are any questions that come up, we'll be answering those in the community itself. Right. I don't believe we have any questions here. Let me just refresh this to make sure. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for attending this session, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.